And welcome to members of the public to this afternoon session of the Planning and Development Control meeting of Winchester City Council. My name is Therese Evans, and we officers who have Julie Pennick, Service Lead, Built Environment, Fiona Sutherland, Public Law Manager, Dave Shaw, Senior Democratic Services Officer, and then the case officer for the first item is Liz Marsden. And we are moving on to agenda item 12, 19/02421/FUL. It's a residential development of 60 dwellings and 4 flats. Access from New Road with car parking, landscaping, public open space and associated work on land off New Road, Swanmore. Liz is already here and ready to give her presentation, so over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Chair. As you said, the application is for 64 residential units on this site, which is about 2.4 hectares, I think, in total land area. It's located to the south of Swanmore and forms a part of an allocated site that stretches from New Road across to, it says there Droxford Road, but I think it's called Hillpand on the other side. The allocation comprises a number of parcels of land, and the initial phase, which is this one here at Alderswood near Hillpand, has been developed and is now occupied.
Liz, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but because we've got the door open and other extraneous noises, that would be great. And speaking a little bit louder would be great too.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
But carry on, because we did hear it.
So at the present time, the site is an undeveloped green field. Its southern boundary has an unmade track, which is called the Lakes, along it, which is lined by trees. There are hedgerows to the other side and development to the north, and Springvale, and then Belmont Farm to the east. This is Swanmore College to the west of New Road. This was the original, this has been in negotiation for some time, and this was the originally submitted block plan, which included a block of flats near the entrance and was a more densely developed scheme with no internal open space and a variety of types of houses and tenures throughout. Following negotiations, something got very loud. Following negotiations, the scheme was amended, and this is the currently proposed block plan, which is before you for decision. The flats were removed to create a drainage system, and there was an introduction of an area of public open space into the centre of the building and into the centre of the plot, which breaks the whole development up. Houses were pulled away from the boundaries to ensure that there was no need to cut back hedgerows unduly. There was an introduction of a footpath link to Springvale to the north, and yes, again, the development moved. The reduction in numbers was from 71 units to 64. So initially, I think it had 8 flats, and 4 of those were moved. So there's now only 4 flats on the development. And in terms of appearance, this is the primary street scene. So this is on the southern edge of the site and will be viewed from the lakes. And this is the edge of the new edge of the development of Swanmore, or proposed new edge of development. And then we have a cross section going along towards facing an area of interest for nature conservation, which is the field to the west of the site for New Road. As I said, the site was part of a whole allocated area which ran from New Road to Hillpound, and this was the original illustrative master plan that was submitted with the David Wilson homes, which is now called Aldous Wood, which is located to the east of the allocation. Each site, because they were in several different ownerships, and the policy requires the submission of a master plan as the sites came through. And this is the master plan that was submitted with the current proposal to show how this scheme would fit into the overall area. The central section has yet to be developed, though there is an application that was refused for half of that site last year. In terms of houses, there are a variety of size and tenures, as I said, of houses, the majority of which two and three bedrooms, so they are policy compliant. So the semi-detached, detached and short terraces. There's the detached property, the larger ones. That's the block of flats. And the flats in there, floor plans. And then we've got some with rooms in the roof, relatively few actually, which have rooms in the roof. And I know there was some concern that they were actually taller than the village design statement allowed, but in fact the roof accommodation is entirely within the roof space. It's not 2.5 stories, it is a roof space with dormers. So, short terrace. So, onto the photos. These are taken, they are principally an undeveloped field, so it's not that exciting. That's looking back towards the access onto New Road and Swanmore College beyond it. This area to, if you can see more, that's the sink area to there, which is just separated by a scrubby hedge and a post rail fence. That's looking across the largest part of the site towards Springvale to the north and Belmont Farm to the east. Again, looking towards Springvale and more directly along the southern boundary with the lakes towards Belmont Farm, which you can just see the top of. Another view along the northern boundary with Springvale, and then looking south along the boundary with Belmont Farm towards the lakes. This is taken from the lakes and is looking across the site towards the access and Swanmore College, which is my car there, it's red. And then looking directly north. It's like that again is looking towards Swanmore College. And that's looking north towards Springvale from the lakes again. And there has been considerable concern about the parking and potential road safety or worsening road safety due to colleges parking for pick-up and drop-off of students. And that's taken just to show the issue. It's a fairly narrow road with cars parked on one side and then the cars straight through. So, and then you can see what happens when a bus comes along. So that is also part of the concerns of the parish in particular. It's considered that the development is acceptable, that the alterations that they've made are in accordance with the policy, and therefore it is in accordance with the policy of the development plan and it should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. And moving on to the public speakers, we have no objectors, but we do have a representative from Swanmore Parish Council, Councillor John Woodman. I'm sorry to have to ask you to bring your own chair over.
That's right.
It's in the interest of safety. So you have 3 minutes, the clock is, Davis is showing you, and when you start speaking, the clock will start automatically, and then it could be that there are some questions of clarification from the committee to you afterwards.
That's fine.
When you're ready. Thank you.
Chair, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. Committee members, whilst the principle of development on the site is given through LPP2, there are still a number of issues that remain unresolved at this stage, and some more Parish Council objects to the plan as currently proposed. We've held a number of discussions with the applicant, as well as having 2 meetings with the case officer since the original application 2 years ago. As a result of these, a number of our concerns have been addressed, for which we're very grateful, including the removal of the block of flats, which by the entrance, reduction in the number of properties, pedestrian access to the existing development to the north and the overall layout. However, we have still had serious concerns around access to New Road. As with all developments, they're viewed in isolation and do not take into account past and future developments in the area, resulting in an unintentional accumulation of issues. We welcome the increase in visibility displays following our supply of updated speed data for the road, showing an increase in the 85th percentile speed over the last 2 years, despite previous road safety measures being taken. We also welcome the addition of the TRO as part of the Section 278 agreement. However, that would not address the primary issue with this junction, namely the speed of traffic and the exit opposite college entrances. There is an opportunity with this development to make significant improvements to the smaller infrastructure in this area and put a small roundabout at this entrance point, resulting in the removal of the straight road from one end of the village to the other. This could be funded from the existing infrastructure pot already allocated to small from previous developments, which we're in discussion with HTC about, and the current funding allocated by Persimmon for the proposed entrance. This would result in no reduction in profit margin for the applicant, no increased cost for HTC, and only benefits for the village. The entrance as currently designed will also result in an informed school run turning point, so prevention of this through use of the traffic line is requested if an overall design change is not carried out. In addition, during earlier discussions with the applicant, it was requested that a parking area be added to the development to the right-hand side of the entrance road, with a similar surface to the existing parking found in the village centre car park. This space was originally allocated to a small block of flats, which was designed out as unsuitable for the location. This has not happened and has been replaced by an attenuation pond. This pond provides only 18% of the water retention capacity for the site, the remainder being stored in underground tanks found under the roadways. It's been requested that this pond is changed to further underground storage, resulting in the ability to provide the requested car parking area. Today we've heard nothing but excuses as to why this can't be done, most of which we believe are unfounded. As well as providing parking to offset that, removed by the TRO, this would help address the limited amount of visitor parking found on the site. As with previous developments, there is no direct support for smaller infrastructural amenities, just another significant payment to the college. Whilst this is admirable, they would have benefited well over £2 million in investment from developments, whilst the village hall, the primary schools and M2 have received nothing. We would like to see this addressed in the Section 106 agreement, as according to the case officer, this is negotiated after planning is approved, although significant progress seems to have been made on this as details are found in the case officer's report. The proposal lacks a master plan other than an update to one generated by the previous applications, and there appears to be no clear plan for the adjoining Belmont farm site or the land to the north of that, which will result in a further 40 to 50 properties being built. For those reasons, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, any questions of clarification? Councillor Woodman, your ideas of alternative ideas are very interesting, but it's not really a question, but I suspect that you know that we have to deal with the application in front of us.
Absolutely, and we're trying to engage with, we have engaged with Highways to have discussion and with Persimmon to have that discussion. And we're hopeful that part of this Section 278 discussions, as a result of this, we can make that happen.
Yeah.
Our hope was that we could make that happen beforehand, and then it would be part of this solution. But the solution proposed is not the right solution for this subject.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. If you'd like to pick up your chair and walk back. Thank you. And then we have a supporter, Greg Allison, who's the agent. Good afternoon, Mr. Allison. There's a button at the base of the microphone, that's right. And when you're ready, you've got your papers settled, you have 3 minutes, and the time, which is on the clock to your left, will start, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So when you're ready.
Good afternoon, my name is Greg Allison and I will be speaking on behalf of Persimmon Homes in support of the application. Firstly, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the council for putting in the arrangements for this meeting to take place at this time. I'd also like to take this opportunity to commend your officers for their robust but ultimately positive and proactive way in which they have dealt with this application throughout. I'm grateful, thank you. Turning to the merits of the proposal, as the officer report records and the presentation shows, the site is currently allocated for housing and therefore the principle of residential development is established. It follows then that the key test for the determination of this application is whether the detailed proposals comply with local and national planning policies, the overall aim of which is to prevent harmful development in inappropriate locations. The main issues raised during the consultation period relate to the density of the proposal, the highways impacts and also drainage. Regarding these matters, the application is supported by a number of detailed reports, the conclusions of which are supported by the Highway Authority and the Legal Authority, as well as Southern Water and Environment Agency. No objection on either highways or drainage has been lodged by the consultees. I'm also pleased to see that the officers assessed and concluded that the proposal is appropriate in terms of density and design. As you've seen from the summary class particulars and the presentation, the application proposes family housing at a residential scale in keeping with the residential character of the area and in a mix that serves the housing needs of the locality. The traditional detail of the houses, proposed materials have taken into account the requirements of the village design statement in order to reflect the local characteristics. All expected amenities for family housing have been provided and made available for future occupants, with every dwelling having its own private garden and its own allocated car parking, together with visitor car parking provision across the site, all to meet up to standards. High quality and resilient landscaping is proposed throughout. The application fully accords with SW1 policy, with all financial contributions and obligations having been accepted, including those making the Tiara along New Road and within the site. It is important to reiterate that the scheme also proposes a fully policy compliant level of affordable housing, all of which weigh heavily in its favour. As regards the adjacent site, the current landowners have confirmed that they are prepared to sign up to Section 106, granting access to the boundary of Belmont Farm. This I hope will give the council the comfort you require following the previous meeting of the boundary. So to conclude, I hope you agree that the overall benefits of development cover briefly with this deputation and in detail within the officer's report demonstrably outweigh any short-term impacts on the result of current planning permission during this meeting. Thank you. And also happy for any questions.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions of clarification? Councillor Weir.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your introduction. As a national house builder, could you tell me, because there doesn't seem to be anything in the report, what Persimmon's approach is to raising standards of energy efficiency, moving towards carbon neutrality in their building developments? There's nothing in here about how you're going to, the energy approach to energy in the houses, or heating, or indeed EV charging or anything like that. Is that implicit in what you do?
It is, yeah. Persimmon are moving towards timber frame construction, where there are environmental benefits in terms of installation of things like that, building that way. So a lot of those buildings, a lot of the houses are built using that form of construction, with all the everything from sustainability and things like that. And all the requirements of building regulations are naturally carried forward into the housing. And also we've accepted all the conditions and requirements by the council in terms of the energy efficiency and water efficiency. On there, we've not argued against it in any sense. We accept all the obligations that the council imposes on us in that sense.
But you don't go beyond it in any way?
Not ordinarily. I mean, there are circumstances in which where there's a tested planning policy in place or a building regulation obligation, then we'll need to, but generally speaking, we will go with the statutory obligations.
Okay.
Councillor Rutter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Weir asked about electric charging points, but you didn't mention those. Do all the houses have electric charging points? I mean, that would be what we would expect in this day and age.
Well, yeah, as a starting point, as it currently stands, EV charging infrastructure is one of the optional extras that you can purchase, but there's increasing requirement for us to provide at least the conduits and the wires to do it. The problem you have with car charging points in like a scale, particularly on a site that wasn't designed with those in mind, is the risk is you have cables crossing footways and paths degree of share driveways and things like that. So those facilities are best designed at the outset, which unfortunately is not the case here. But there is certainly a case where that charging points could be provided on some of the boxes or on the garages.
You're saying it's too late to put electric charging points into a lot of these homes before we've even given you planning permission?
No, what I'm saying is the universal application of car charging points is best implemented from the outset, which will happen here. So there is, I think, a case to retrofit or at least make provision for car charging infrastructure if you require it, if you think it's.
So people will have to pay extra for that? Not necessarily. And my other question was about solar panels. Have you used as many solar panels as you can on these, or?
Yeah, well, as part of the condition that requires us to look at sustainable construction, an assessment will be carried out for each property and for each site that will give a proportion of the amount of solar panels that are required, and then those will be.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Greg, can I bring out some detail about the drainage across the sites? I'm not talking about the far water drainage, I'm talking about the natural drainage. This was, to say the least, a gap sites. A previous development along this line, in fact, David Wilson Parks, had to put a retention tank, surface one, in order to catch that water drainage. Now, see in the the case office description that you have to raise the holes, particularly the lower section, a little bit in order to allow possible flooding. But you have, I think, looking at the two, how the plans are progressed, only reluctantly put in a swale where there was a block in order to catch water. With the advantage, you didn't want any extra, a faster water flow into the Moor stream, as you must surely do there. Can you bring us up to date with some of your thinking about this, as it was a particularly wet site? But you see that from the vegetation that's on the site now, it's a lot of weeds.
Absolutely.
So could you expand a little bit on that?
First thing to say is I'm not an engineer, so I'll just be conveying what I've been told by our internal engineers and also the hydrologists and drainage consultants we've got working for us on this side. The southern extent of the site is highly constrained with the flood zone, and any flood attenuation needs to be outside of that area, otherwise it will become ineffective in the event of a large scale flood event. The original proposal was that the flats on the side and all the surface water attenuation in tanks underneath the roads, which is partly why the roads are to the north, but not to the lower highway, as the council would say. But when it became clear that we had to, well, there was urban design issues with flats, there were potential flood capacity issues as you identify with the flats there, and also the ecological benefits of having a pond there were greater than the flats already in car park. So the scheme was reworked, and that pond doesn't take the entirety of the site's drainage, surface water drainage. It takes the water, as Councillor Bowman says. But the thinking is that surface water drainage will go into, for the property to the north, will go into the crates and will slow down with hydro breaks, and then it will dissipate at the same rate that it would from an ordinary field, not this field, but from a general field into the ditch at the bottom, and then 20% will go into the pond, and then it will sit again, so they disappear off there. So the two systems work in conjunction, but they are separate.
Can I follow up with a brief question about nitrate? Do you think, I mean, you know, one of the issues about any development is nitrate of this number. This was not animal sea level state of land that you've acquired. But nonetheless, it's still nitrate coming off that land. Do you think that swale, as it is going to do the job of nitrate reduction before the water gets into the Moors stream and eventually down to the Moors pond, which is part of the national park?
Not to the point of neutrality, no, I don't think it will. The pond will be planted up and it will have some nitrogen benefits in a sense, but the nitrogen mitigation for this site will be by taking the land outside of the site, out of agricultural use, and kind of get to net neutrality, if you like, with those side of things. So there will be a benefit, it will not be sufficient to meet the nitrogen.
People themselves, I'm talking about the natural nitrate as well.
Well, I've read a lot about the benefits of rebates and planting most of that. I don't think everybody's really sure, but there will be a benefit. To what extent that is, I can't say.
Yeah, okay. I'll stop there, otherwise I'll start dominating.
Oh, no, you've not. And councillor, there is a paragraph, as you know, on nitrates, and
Yes, I
the
know.
applicant has agreed.
Related to the nitrate with the swell.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Ling.
Yeah, we hear from what you just said, that doing these.
Bit louder, councillor Ling.
I'm sorry, I thought you could hear me.
Well,
Looking earlier
I'm
on
not sure the
this-
people behind, no, they're all shaking their head. They can't hear you.
I can't hear you, Gasoline. Sorry.
Sorry about that. We hear about the sustainability of these properties being to the minimum level as possible, under the current building regulations, but we are a council which is looking at carbon levels and having heat and light houses. As these properties are being built towards the end of the period where you'll be able to put in gas boilers and that, what sort of heating arrangements are you looking at to reduce the carbon footprint of these properties?
I'm not in a position to say, I'm afraid that's not something I would not ever be involved in the planning process. As dealt with later on during the construction, the tendering, if you like, of the building.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's fair to say that we're doing the minimum possible. I think what I'm saying is that we are fully meeting the current requirements, whether that's through the planning policies or the building regulations. It's not necessarily the same as.
Yeah, but they're all training and increasing the efficiency of the buildings.
Absolutely, and I think it is fair to say that model buildings, particularly timber frame construction, like I said, and these properties, they are of a higher standard than the in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So things are progressively improved, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions from members? No. So thank you very much for coming along, and if you'd like to go back with your chair, sorry about this. Liz, anything you'd like to pick up from what you've heard from the public speaking?
Just to say on the issue of sustainability of building and everything, we have got the condition, that the council's condition, which requires an uplift on building regs to meet code 4, and that is included with it. So it has to be at least 19% better than the current building regulations requirements for sustainability in terms of emissions.
Thank you for that update. So we'll move then, members, on to the planning considerations, and we'll start with the principle of development, which is page 132, 133, just a bit on 134. Liz, could I ask about the fact that although this is in the local plan, the requirement in the local plan is much less than what there will end up being housing wise.
Yes, I mean, the terminology in the local plan in policy SW1 is about 140. That doesn't preclude, and this is set out quite clearly actually in the inspector's report on the local plan, and it said, I mean, I've got a couple of quotes here, it was also quite possible that the ultimate number of dwellings provided at densities that would be generally consistent with the character's area and location, or the site's character and location, could be materially higher than about 140. And basically, as long as they're deliverable and environmentally acceptable, he said it would not be reasonable for the permission to be refused solely on the grounds of numbers. So
Thank you.
it isn't, it does accord with the policy.
Yeah, thank you. Councillors, any further questions on principle of development? No. Design and layout, that's on page 134, 135. Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If design of the houses, does this reflect the fact that this is a movement towards passive house design, i.e. smaller windows, therefore more brickwork, and reflection that there is high insulation quality and so on within these houses? Because you notice that what is happening with design of houses these days, certainly the example we've got in front of us of today, does reflect that. Now, there's no photovoltaics, so how does that design reflect what we want out of low energy input, high insulation, and so on?
I wouldn't have said that the windows were unduly small in this house. They appear to be, the houses themselves are very traditional shape and appearance, I would say. And I mean, often at this stage, you don't get provision of photovoltaics. It could probably be an idea for them to introduce it at the outset. But as a result of the condition, they have to demonstrate how these properties will achieve the Code 4 standards for, improvements to what in terms of the sustainability. So we haven't got the details of the actual construction of these, but they have to be constructed in a way that will accord with our policies. And we've got two conditions: one, to demonstrate how they will do that prior to commencing work, and then they have to demonstrate that they have achieved that prior to occupation. So we are covered, and in terms of the actual construction in bricks and mortar, I'm afraid I don't have that level of detail at this stage.
You went at me a little bit, Liz, and you suggest you're looking for reasons why council policies could not be seen reflected in here regarding carbon sustainability, well, sustainability of those buildings.
Sorry, I didn't think that's what I had said.
So far, you refer to building regulations as a reason why we should not go demand higher than that, which is a fair comment.
Sorry, I didn't think that's what I said. Our council policies and the conditions that we impose on applications require the applicant to demonstrate that the construction and the sustainability and the efficiency of these properties will be at least 19% higher than the minimum required by, or what is required by building regs.
Okay,
So that is already.
That's the answer I want to hear. I didn't quite catch that in your answer. So,
okay, apologies.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Could I ask you, Liz, about the access links? SW1 did require access links across the whole stretch of land, and I can see that there's a link into Spring Vale, footpath into Spring Vale, and where will the other links be?
The link through into Belmont Farm is shown. Can I put this back as we go?
Or it just refers to. Are those? I see. I've got them. They're those.
Yeah. So if you look at
wavy things. Yeah. Okay.
So that is through. I appreciate that there's a little bit of a one of the reasons it was deferred from last year because.
So you could, in fact, walk from New Road all the way through to Hill Pound along those tracks.
Well, the links it anyway, for that you can walk from one side to the other. As far as this is concerned, the applicants have provided their access and confirmation that an access will be provided right up to the boundary of Belmont Farm which is the adjacent site.
Yeah,
That is, and then obviously they're not responsible for providing access across Beaumont
No,
Farm,
but
but
then
that will be provided.
you're into the roads
Yeah.
anyway, aren't you? And that's in perpetuity.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Rutter?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Following on from that, can I just ask about, it's not clear from this block plan. I can see the footpath up to Springdale, but are there links through to the lakes as well, rather than having to go out onto the road?
Not allowed.
Is it not allowed?
I think that's right.
I'm not sure whether it's allowed or not. That area gets quite soggy, and I think that they had chosen not to put, because it's not that far.
Is that a public right of way, the lakes? Is that a?
Yeah.
It is.
Okay,
I could answer, but it's listed.
Yeah.
okay, I just, well, in that case, I just find it incomprehensible that there isn't pedestrian access through from this development onto that track, walkway, footpath, right of way. And if there isn't put in one, or whatever the state of the ground, that I'm sure residents will create one, because that's the sort of thing they do, isn't it? But that's all right, I'm just asking, thank you.
It is an access to the school, isn't it? I mean, my children have walked up there to the school, but it is a very muddy.
The lakes is,
The left.
and I think the part of the policy was
Yeah.
to create access through the allocation,
Yeah,
not necessarily relying on the lakes
no.
as a through route.
Any further
It's a
questions?
bit more than that, but
No, keep quiet. Councillor Pearson, please. So we'll move on to the impact on the character of the area. Next heading, landscape and trees. Councillor Reid?
Liz, what is the future management of any open landscape? Please.
As part of the 106, there is a requirement for a management company or provision for management to be set up, and that is included in all the heads of terms, I think, in the 106.
So this is not something the parish council would get involved in?
I think they probably could if they wanted to, but it's not as far as I'm aware at this point.
Thank you.
Councillor Pearson.
Councillor Pearson?
yes, so regarding the boundary treatment, which the northern boundary with Springdale was, as you know, we've shown the photographs, are very, very poor condition. Similarly, the boundary, the southern boundary, which links from the lakes, which is, again, as Councillor Rutter said, it's exactly what it is the viewpoint, but the historic boundary. Is there something within the management plan, landscape plan, to enhance those boundaries? Because they're all in very, very poor condition. And again, with the boundary to the sink, which is presently used as a horse paddock, which is sadly overgrazed. So calling a sink now is stretching the point a bit, but
It's fine.
so it comes down to, are those boundaries going to be enhanced as part of the landscape plan?
Yeah, I apologise, I haven't included any of the landscape plans within the presentation.
Yeah.
But certainly along the southern boundary, there's a lot of work that's being done to make it more environmentally, ecologically friendly and enhance that planting
Yeah.
along that extent. And with the sink as well to the north, where at present it's just a scrubby hedge and a wire fence,
Well,
that's going to be-
photographs, very, very poor condition.
that's going to be bolstered as well. The other hedges, in fact, along
The Belmont Farm hedge and the hedges to the sink.
the Belmont Farm hedge is not too bad. I mean, that's quite a. Let's see if I've got the photos.
That might be a difficult one because of the owner
Well, obviously, there will have to be, so it's actually a very dense and quite a tall hedge along there.
Sure,
So they'll need a gap to create the access through to it.
yes.
But those hedges and the hedges with Spring Vale and the other side of the sink are all quite thick at the moment. I mean, when I took my photos, it was winter and they weren't looking particularly robust, but they're not bad. And the whole, we deliberately got the original submission went right the way up to the hedges, which would have required
Yes, they
quite a lot
are,
of cutting.
they're ancient boundaries, yes.
Yeah, so they've been dragged back in, so we should be able to avoid anything other than, usual trimming of hedges to maintain them.
Yeah.
So they can be maintained.
That's part of the answer to the question Councillor Rutz was saying. They're pretty well environed, and hence the issue with Belmont Farm, as it was. And the access point from the country home development, which is Belmont Farm, through to there. So, do they have a ransom strip some sort?
That seemed to have been the issue, but it wasn't really apparent from either of the block plans, but that has been resolved. There's an agreement by the owner of that land that they will allow access through to Belmont Farm.
That's another debate. I want to go to.
Okay, right, thank you. So, highways and parking.
Highways and parking. Yeah.
Highways and parking.
Yes, Chairman.
Councillor Pearson.
The actual highways itself within the development is not really the issue, although there has to be modification, as the case officer quite rightly says, because of the risk of flooding on this site. It's raised
Is this
off
a
the
question?
Sorry?
Is this a question?
Yes, there is a question here. I don't know how much we can bring into the highways link New Road, but of course that the link that's got to be through to the Belmont Farm site. What standard is that going to be? Is it going to be, it's going to be carrying all the traffic of these houses. Is it going to be standard that HCC will accept, or is it going to be the normal course that it's good as far as development is concerned, with lighting, I hope. But that's again the show. Could we say a little bit about that, how that is being resolved? Because the traffic going onto New Road is an issue.
Yeah. Liz, do you have any comments to make there?
I think the main link road certainly is going to be constructed to an adoptable standard. The only concern that Hampshire came up with was if they were to have the water attenuation tanks underneath,
Yes.
like some of the secondary roads had.
Yeah.
That main link road isn't subject to that, so it will be adoptable.
It will be adoptable.
Yes.
Well, that's good news, thank you. Hope we can have that in writing from the county.
Councillor Reid.
Just picking up on what Councillor Pearson said with regard to lighting. This is again only half a kilometre from the dark skies policy area. Can we ensure that the lighting will be treated accordingly, very close to a boundary?
There's a condition about lighting in here, so that is something that we can control. I did look at 16. I did look at the position of this site in relation to the boundary of the South Downs National Park, and there isn't anywhere where you haven't got quite a lot of intervening development. So you've got Alderswood between there, and then it's wraps around the top of Swanmore. So I appreciate your point, but I'm not sure that we have got a condition we can control lighting to a sensible edge of urban area standard, but I don't think it would actually affect the national park as such.
It's only just a dangerous lights that can be otherwise addressed by lots of downward facing light rather than.
So we move on to ecology. Les, could I ask about this statement on the update sheet? We've received an email from the owner of Belmont Farm. He's never been contacted by Persimmon Homes to request permission for ecological surveys on his land. The relevance of that is?
There isn't one, but it came in as a comment, so I thought I'd better include it as an update sheet.
Okay.
On the update sheet.
Yeah.
We've got a condition about newts. They've taken on board the potential presence of them, and it is adopted the stance that they will be newts and will require mitigation, and they're prepared to do everything they can to do that.
We've also had a comment from the Swift Society. It's the day of Swifts, I'm afraid, today, and to say that they would like many more Swift boxes, but I can't see any condition unless it comes on the 21, does it?
That's for the biodiversity net gain condition.
Yeah, okay.
Whereby we actually require it. So as part of that, there is certainly a provision they could, and they've got 5 Swift boxes and 10 other bird boxes throughout the site. So that will certainly be looked at.
Okay.
As part of it.
I didn't want them to be forgotten. Any other contributions?
I've got one on condition 14. Condition 14.2 refers to 1 in 100 years climate change. This 3-4 years ago, I think, was altered to 1 in 80 years. Why are we still using the 1 in 100?
I'm afraid this came directly from the floodwater management team, so I didn't query it.
Maybe that's something that can be looked into in the future.
Okay, let's move on then. So nitrates, and Councillor Pearson, you've already had your go on nitrate. Any other questions on nitrate? And then we've got other matters of policy and conclusion. Are we permitted to know how much the contribution is to Swanmore College from the applicants?
Yes, it's actually in the heads of terms for the 106. It's £327,106.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we've come to the end of questions on the report. So debate. Councillor Rutter and then Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. Nobody said anything about affordable housing. I'm delighted to see that it's nearly 40%, and welcome that. I welcome the increased permeability of the site. I'm a bit concerned about access to neighbouring footpaths. So perhaps the developer can look at that again. Access down to the lakes would be good, I think. I hope that the developer and the county council, I know that's not something we can influence directly from this committee, but I would hope that they would continue to talk to the parish council and come to an agreement about the new roundabout and other access problems with the college, as well as giving them a handful of dosh to actually try and solve some of those issues that don't then impact badly on the new residents of this development. But overall, notwithstanding the extra houses on a local plan site, I think that's inevitable given the pressure on housing generally. I am happy with this new arrangement, the new plan, and I will be supporting the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, this is the last, well, the penultimate site that was allocated in the last local plan. So whether there should be housing on this site or not is not an issue. It's in the local plan and it is a housing site. I would like to thank Liz, how far she's managed to change the original application from what actually we have now in front of us. A lot of improvements have come through, which are of benefit, one of which is the addition of this swale and the recognition that there is a possible flood issue on this site, because presently it's more of a, well, it's a very, very old pasture. It's got reed beds all over it. It's interesting, nothing came up about the fact that the sink next to it is a horse paddock, and presently right by it is a huge manure heap. So there are going to be issues about that sooner or later, but that's not part of this planning application. What again is a peripheral aspect of the planning application is road safety on New Road. And I would like to thank Liz again with this. I'm also in the folder of documents that is part of this application. There is acknowledgement from the county that there will be parking regulations to push parking away from outside the college, which will help as far as getting in and out of the site, this particular site. And also, this donation should cover the cost of an uncontrolled crossing. Now, these are, I know, peripheral to the planning of this application, but at the same time, it is something that impacts on road safety outside the only major comprehensive school we have in the Southern Parishes. And it is a safety issue. While there's one mentioned by Liz, one instance, recent instance by Liz here, where a child was knocked down as he's crossing the road to get to the bus, which I think is going to Whiteley, it's a school bus. There's an average of 3 traffic incidents, not actually accidents, a year on outside this site. And so anything that happens on this site is going to impact on the road. And I'm pleased that actually we've got, if, and there's a condition on this, this comes through, then a lot of the unhappiness of the residents of Swanmore will be reflected in a conclusion here. And because of this, well, not because of this, but everything else on what this has got, I think is to this applicant's favour. Now, been uncertain about the lack of photovoltaics. You can't see this site from the National Park. It's 1.5 kilometres from the National Park. Let's be rational about this. There will be street lighting. One new developments have street lighting is a matter of course. And I imagine it will be up to the standard regulations of such a site. Boundary treatment, access into the lakes, driveway, it's also a permissive track for access to vehicles, for which there are a number of gypsy sites along that, for that. And one of the things the Environment Protection and Natural Inland was it's an ancient hedge. You can't, there's only one gap through that hedge, and that's much farther to the east. So that is what the reason for that. I agree with you, it might perhaps have been desirable to put a road into it, but couldn't do it. But thank you. Yeah, thank you, Liz, for the report. And that's, to my mind, it pushes any doubts I might have had about the whole package, which I believe is now satisfactory.
Councillor Weir.
Thank you, Chair. I think I endorse everything that's really been said. I just wanted to make the point here. This is a substantial development. It's a major part of our housing, part of our existing local plan, of which, of course, we have to develop. What concerns me is the lack of future-proofing in this site, and I appreciate that a lot of work and investment will have to go in to make it suitable for development. But for the residents who are moving in, houses that do not look to the next 40 or 50 years and the enormous changes that are going to come down the line in response to climate change, I think is must be of concern to us here. that an uplift on Code 4 still does not take us to where we were in the original local plan. And we don't have an opportunity to challenge that at the moment, but I think the developer is letting down its future clients, particularly as it's 40% affordable. Some of those people are going to be facing higher bills than those who can afford to build more future-proofed houses. And I just wanted to put that on the record. It's a concern. Thank you.
I agree with you, Councillor Weir. I mean, it is a very marshy area, hence the name Swan Moor, because it was Swan Mere and swans used to fly around it. So it is a difficult site to build on. I suppose I'm slightly disappointed that we've ended up with more houses than the allocation in SW1, but then we've heard from the case officer that that is okay, and it does say about, because I checked it in the local plan, and the issue of road safety is a concern in New Road, and this will add to the problem. I mean, when we looked at the slides and saw parking on both sides of the road and then a bus trying to get down, I mean, several of the people in this room, their children went there, including mine, and that's what it's like. It's probably worse now because they've got double yellow lines, and so, you know, the parking either side of the road, so that's nothing to do with this development. But I do feel that perhaps there could have been some offer of a little bit of visitor parking or something to try and relieve that. But anyway, there wasn't. So yes, I shall be supporting it. And I do agree over the issues brought up about sustainability. Any more contributions? No. So this application has been recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and the section 106, which start on page 139 and then go through pages of them as set out in the report. Those people wishing to approve this application, could they please show?
All members, Chair.
Thank you. So that application is approved. You now,
Would you like to take a break?
pardon?
Would you like to take a break?
Would you like to take a break, members?
For 5 minutes?
Yeah,
Yes, okay. Okay.
5 minutes. Okay, so start again. Well, good afternoon, the new members of the public and Councillor Cook. Councillor Cook went on item 13, which is the one before you want to speak on. Very lovely to see you. Welcome. I'm Therese Evans. I'm chair of the planning committee. So we are just about to start item 13. 20/02243/FUL Straight Path Paddock, Crickets Hill in Shedfield, and the application is variation of conditions 2 and 4 of a previous application to add an additional 3 mobile homes. So the case officer is Rose Lister. Good afternoon, Rose. And when you're ready, we're ready to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Here we have the red line plan. I just wanted to draw your attention to the update sheet before we start in earnest. There is some information regarding the drainage and an additional condition regarding the drainage, condition 15. We've also received an additional comment from Shedfield Parish Council. As a verbal update, I'm aware that the wording of condition 4 may not be considered as very clear. This can be discussed further down the line. Condition 4 is currently on page 183. So the site is an existing gypsy site which currently has 2 pitches. The traveller DPT does allow for the intensification of the sites. The applicant and his family have been confirmed to comply with Annex 1 of the PPTS by the policy team and my colleague Rob Green and myself through a statement that they have submitted as part of the application. The additional plots would be for family members of the applicant. Here we have an aerial view of the site. You can see the 2 existing pitches along Prickett's Hill here, just adjacent. There's one here, and plot 2 is here. You can also just see the line of the fence that separates the agricultural section of the site to the northeast here from the residential area here. There is a public right of way that runs just to the north away from the site. There is a farmstead here just above it that effectively screens the site from views from there. Generally speaking, it's considered acceptable for sites to be approximately 5 kilometres away from the nearest centre. This site is approximately 2 miles from Waltham Chase, 2.5 miles from Swanmore, 1.5 miles from Wickham, and for the larger sites, larger centres, Whiteley is approximately 8 miles away and Fareham is approximately 4.8 miles. And therefore is considered to be a sustainable location. Here we have the proposed site layout. You can see at the top of the site they are proposing sufficient parking for 10 car parking spaces. Though not indicated on this plan, there is also sufficient space on each plot for a touring caravan to be parked as well. And we move on to some photos of the site. At the top here, we can see from inside the site, looking towards the access, this is the existing parking area. At the bottom, this is from within the site, you can see on the right-hand side is plot 1 and their amenity space. And on the left-hand side, you can just see plot 2. This is looking towards Prickett's Hill. At the top of the screen, this is looking north. You can see the existing barn on the site and the fence that separates the site from the agricultural area. And underneath is a view towards the agricultural area of the site from within. And here we have at the top, it's a little bit hard to see, but there is some planting alongside this fence looking to the southeast. This was part of the conditions for the original application in 2018. And underneath is a view of the site looking south over the existing amenity space of plot 1 and looking towards plot 2. And finally, this is the view looking south over the site. The new pitches would be directly in front and to the left-hand side. The recommendation is to permit as it complies with development plan policies in Tier 6.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ray. So we only have supporters on our update sheet, and I have just been told that it is just Mr. Murdoch, the agent, who wishes to speak, and not the other people.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So welcome. And when you're settled and ready, you'll see a clock there to your left, and you will have 3 minutes. And when you start speaking, the clock starts as well. I have to stop you at the end of 3 minutes. By all means, finish your sentence, and there might be questions of clarification from the committee, or there might not.
Super. Thank you very much.
When you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to address you in support of my client's planning application. This is an ideal location for this proposal. The site already has planning permission for 2 permanent pitches approved by this committee in 2018 on the basis the site complies in full with policy CP5. This means that we know that the site is in a sustainable location, is accessible to local services, avoids harmful impacts on residential properties nearby, and has adequate facilities existing. The family has been living on the site since 2019 and become part and parcel of the local community since then, as shown in the letters of support from local people. All that this proposal seeks to achieve is that existing residents Offspring to live on the site with them on 3 additional caravan pitches. What makes this proposal so suitable is that it proposes to increase, that the proposed increase is to be entirely contained within the red line boundary of the existing authorised site. This fact means that the proposal is also consistent with policy TR6 in TR7 of the adopted Traveller DPD. The applicants and I have worked extensively with officers to ensure that this scheme complies in every respect with the development plan, so that as a result, none of the statutory consultees have any objections, including significantly your own strategic planning department. Furthermore, the issues of nitrates have been resolved, as has ecology, highways and recreational disturbance, and by way of upfront payments already provided by the applicants. Given that the proposal is in compliance with your development plan, and your planning officer recommends a planning permission is granted subject to enforceable planning conditions, and as a result, I respectfully urge members to adopt your officer's recommendation and to approve the application here today. Thank you very much for your wait.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification? I have a few. Could you just outline a little bit more on the need for 3 extra homes?
I'm sorry?
Could you expand a little more on the need for 3 extra mobile homes, please?
Okay. The need for 3 mobile homes offer 3 adult offspring of the existing residents of the site. 2 of them are already living on the site. 1 family is in a touring caravan, which is unsuitable because it's too small for their family, and the 3rd family member is living in housing, which is really suitable to their needs because they're Romany gypsies. The need for the 3 additional caravans that are in these single unit caravans is so that they can share the care of the elders, which is part of the Romany gypsy culture and way of life. The applicants are actually here before you rather, and the idea is for their children to be living on the site with them to help look after them in their dotage.
So you say that the family is well integrated, so are there some young children as well?
There are young children of school age, well, those are the grandchildren of the applicants, but the proposal is for the adults to come live on the site in the 3 proposed mobile homes. None of them are on the site at the moment, none of those mobile homes. The site's been developed in an authorised way.
I see. So if I've got it right, there are the applicants who are here today.
Yeah.
They live on the site.
Yeah, they live on the site with 1 of their adult children.
Yes.
Yeah, the other adult children lives in a touring caravan on the site, but needs a mobile home for their family.
Okay.
The touring caravan's only 16 foot.
And the 3rd one is for?
The family who's living in housing a mile or so away. Living in housing near.
And is that another sort of offspring of?
Yes, they're all part of the Sherwood family.
Okay.
They're children, but they're adults now, so
Thank you.
offspring.
Any further points of clarification?
Yes, Mayor, you just talked about 2 mobile homes.
3 mobile homes.
Mobile homes plus touring caravan.
Yes. So they've got, at the moment, what we have planned permission for 2 pitches, and with the pitches have a mobile home and a touring caravan. That's what we have planned permission for. What we're asking for, I'll put 3 more mobile homes. Mobile home will be on site all the time, and a touring caravan so that the family can continue travelling to work.
If I could carry on with my question, are there plans? Quite often we have applications for a permanent relaxation block or whatever Are there any plans for
No.
this? No. So will 10 caravans fit onto that site?
There will be 5 mobile homes, 5 touring caravans, and that's in the conditions.
So that's 10.
Yeah,
So-
there's 10, yeah, it's 5 pitches, and each pitch would have a touring caravan so that travellers could maintain a nomadic way of life, and then a residential mobile home for them to live in permanently.
Okay, and my question is, will the site accommodate 5?
Oh, goodness me, yes. Yes, it definitely will. I mean, the plans have been drawn up and been consulted on, and have been found to be acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
I would have put them forward there.
Thank you. Councillor Bento.
I know the site well, it's in my ward. As I go down Cricket Hill, at the entrance to that site, there's a house, Roseview. Is that part of that site, or does it belong to Mr. Sherwood, or what is that?
The
house there.
No.
Well, the sign that says Roseview on the fence.
Yeah, that's my property.
That's what this site is known as.
Oh, well, it's
It isn't.
on a straight paddock or something, isn't it?
It is that straight pod paddock,
Right.
but they call their property. It isn't the house opposite.
But there is a building right by the entrance there.
The building's a barn. It depends what you're talking about. If you put a plan up and you point to the building in, as you go into the site, straight ahead of you is an authorised
Straight
barn.
ahead, which is a barn, but there's one immediately on the right. Is that?
No, that's a mobile home. That's a mobile home authorised by the original commission.
Right. My next question, maybe it's a technical question. When is a mobile home not a mobile home?
But there's a natural law, I can go into that if you like, but the statute definition of a mobile home is in the Caravan Sites Act 1968, and it comes in 2 parts and it's connected on the site, but it doesn't constitute a building. It's a movable structure.
Doesn't look very movable.
I didn't define the Act, I didn't define caravan in the Act, so only applying the Act. But what's applied for on the plans isn't that. If you look at the plans, there are 3 units there. Not what you're looking at if you go in is different to what's applied for on those plans.
Right.
All of the conditions are stated at the back of the report, and then those are the conditions that relate to the plans that are before you.
Okay, Councillor Bento.
That's fine, yes, thank you.
Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Just a sort of interesting question. When I've sat on committees, we've looked at Romany Gypsy planning applications. There has always been a toilet block. I see no toilet block here.
No toilet.
Why there isn't one? There would be one coming forward later.
Different families are different in relation to toilet facilities. Where you have residential mobile homes, quite often gypsies will have facilities in them, they come built with it. On municipal caravan sites that are multi-family, there tend to be day rooms, utility day rooms for reasons of family cleanliness, if you like. When the planning permission was first granted for the 2 pitches, no day rooms were sought at that time either. So this is just continuation of that. This family doesn't seek day rooms, and they're not part of the scheme. We're not asking for this.
I know it's not part of the scheme. That's what I'm just trying to find out why not. And what you're saying is the family doesn't feel it's necessary to have a day room, we'll call it. So it's the caravans are obviously, or the mobile homes are plumbed in to a sewage system.
They are. The existing mobile homes are, and the proposed mobile homes will be. Some Romany Gypsy families insist on having day rooms.
Yes.
That's less and less common in my experience, but it's not certainly under 6. But this family, their views on they don't need day rooms, haven't put day rooms forward on either of the applications as a result.
And the second part of the question, we're actually looking at an application for 10 forms of mobile home, either a touring caravan or a caravan that are going to be on the site.
No, I don't see it like that. I mean, the touring caravans aren't residential. They're solely to enable a nomadic way of life to be pursued, so that when the country funding opens up again, people can go back to work if they did, that travellers can make a living. The residential mobile homes would stay on site, the touring caravans would go away so that travellers can make a living.
Okay.
sorry to put you through
That's fine.
the 10th degree here, I noticed that the 2 mobile homes which are there at present, they were given permission in 2019.
19, yes, excuse me, yes.
So you said, I wrote down. So why coming in now, barely 2 years later, with an application for more than double?
Because the circumstances have changed. The children have grown up, families have grown, the needs now are there to justify that number of caravans.
Right.
But those last 3 mobile homes, those are the last 3 offspring. There's no more offspring to accommodate on the site.
And did you say that the touring caravans are not residential?
Yeah.
But currently one of them is?
Well, currently what's happening is because there's a shortage of residential mobile homes on site, the families happen to live in a touring caravan. But if you have a mobile home, what they need is a mobile home. It's too small to live in a touring caravan. I mean, I'll go on holiday in a touring caravan. I wouldn't want to live in that with my 2 children on a permanent basis. I don't think it's suitable at all.
No, I understand that. I thought we said that one of the offspring, the children, grown-up children, was living in the touring caravan.
That they are with their child. They're living on the site at the moment in touring caravan because there isn't planning permission for the additional mobile homes.
Okay, got it. Any further points of clarification for Mr. Murdoch? No, thank you very much, Mr. Murdoch, for coming along and to pick up your chair and go back. So, members, we will go to the report, planning considerations. First of all, principle of development on page 180. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is the heading we come under. I know these particular sites are problematical in some places. The fact that this is for a single family, can we not have them as named on the application, on the permissions? Because I can see otherwise, and it happens elsewhere, that these are exchanged. Yeah. And the people that got the permissions in the first place have disappeared and somebody else has come in. So is it possible that it can be named part of this, as it is a family?
Chairman, I think we're not looking to make an exception to any policy. What your officer has told you is this is policy compliant, and therefore the principle of extending this site is acceptable. It wouldn't therefore be reasonable, in my view, to condition that and limit it to one family. If this family choose to move on to another site and this becomes available, then another family, as long as they meet the definitions, could move in and it would remain policy compliant. So I don't think it's a reasonable condition, Chair, in my view.
I understand what Julie is saying. I'll just have this word concern that if it goes outside the family, then that's when additional units start to appear. But that's my view.
Councillor Bento.
Can we just have a quick update on the availability of traveller sites, where we are on the number of sites or their occupation?
Chairman, I don't think I can give you that update today. It's a very technical process that your planning policy
as well as you can.
Team would go through. What I can say is very recently, as a result of a number of appeals and a very recent appeal, we have been able to prove that we do have a 5-year supply at the moment, but of course that's something that will be reviewed as we go forward with the local plan. But I don't think it's material to the assessment of this case. This case accords with your policy TR 6 and 7 and therefore recommending approval. I think that's the position, Chair.
It's just that apparently they have searched for other sites, but been unsuccessful. Is that right?
Chairman, I think, well, perhaps the case officer can pick that up.
A statement was submitted that said that, or confirmed that the children had searched for other sites. At the time, due to the COVID situation, a lot of them had closed their doors and were not available. As far as I'm aware, that's still the case due to the COVID reasoning. It's not, there are no other sites available. However, this application does comply with our policies and confirms that, or the DPD does allow for intensification sites for families as they go through the life cycle and allows for that intensification to be put in place.
Could I sort of carry on that conversation? We've got a 5-year land supply for Gypsy and Traveller sites. And then I just wanted to hone in on the concern of the Sheffield Parish Council that there are already a number of authorised sites in the neighbourhood. Does that make a difference? Because I thought that when the next statement says it's obliged, City Council is obliged to ensure the scale does not dominate the nearest settled community. Because where we were just looking, the lakes that has the Gypsy and Traveller site, there's a site almost opposite that, behind it in Forest Road in Swanmore. Then there's another site in Sherrill Heath, is there not? Yeah. And then we've got all the Sheffield sites, but you know, they've all got permission and are getting permission. So where do we stand on the, you know, the sort of accumulation of Gypsy and Traveller sites in an area?
I think, Chairman, what you have to do is assess each case on its merits and test it against your policies in the Gypsy and Traveller DPD. And I think in this case, because of the application before us, because we think the intensification is acceptable at this site for the reasons you've heard, we think that's an acceptable solution. I think if there are some other unauthorised sites, that's something we need to look at more widely, and that's something we're doing through the local plan review. So I think you just have to test this one and decide if this one is acceptable or not. And I think having the case officer having considered it in regard to TR6 and 7 considers that it is acceptable, Chair, I think that's the position all we can do today, really.
I'm sorry to keep on,
Chair.
but at the last paragraph it says the sites must be in sustainable locations. And I think I'd like to challenge some of those mileages that I've heard, in particular where I live in Wickham, because this site is further than 1.5 miles from Wickham, not from the very boundary, the rural boundary perhaps, but to the centre of the settlement is definitely more than 1.5 miles. So are we still saying that this is a sustainable location for 5 families, really, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. There's a general understanding that approximately 5 kilometres from a site is to the nearest centre is acceptable and considered sustainable. That has been confirmed by various appeals that we've received, and that's what we're basing our assessment on. So 5
kilometres from the edge of a centre or to the centre of that settlement?
So I've measured it as to the nearest amenity. So in this case, from the site, it was approximately 1.5 miles to the nearest amenity within Wickham from the site.
Chair, Councillor McLean.
Sorry?
If you finished, Councillor McLean.
Oh, I have finished it. Councillor McLean.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm just picking up on something that Councillor Reid said. We have about creep when we have it is laudable that you're trying to go the legal route and doing it properly rather than retrospective, I have to say. But I've seen creep happen in Derby, where an application or a site was started illegally, it then was made legal on appeal. It was gone from 3 caravans to 13, which is the creep. And I don't know how we protect the residents against this creep in the number of caravans appearing on sites. And please can have some advice on it. You know, I've seen it so many times.
Chairman,
Like change of ownership, which you've tried to, you've answered, Julie, but it's not.
Yeah, I think my advice, Chairman, is that that's a matter for another day as part of the local plan review. And your job here today is just to assess this case and its merits, you know, and having regard to what you heard in your case officer report presentation and that we've heard from the public speakers. I think it's a much wider discussion to talk about the whole, and there is work being done on that by your plan policy team and consultants dealing with that, and that will come out in the local plan review, Chair. I think it's not something we can really tackle in today's application on this single site that's looking to expand its number of pitches.
Okay.
Right, so shall we move on then to highways and parking, which is on page 181. Councillor McLean.
Pick up. It's sadly that Councillor Fern isn't here to comment on his calling this committee, but his item 2 says inadequate parking spaces. Caravans of these sizes usually have multiple bedrooms, and thus minimum requirements do not appear to have been met. 6 spaces for 5 caravans seems slightly inadequate.
Is that a question?
It is, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it inadequate?
I think no more than 6.
Thank you, Chair. So the amended plan that I showed previously shows sufficient parking for 10 vehicles on the site. There is also additional space on the site for the touring caravans that can be accommodated. I think Councillor Fern's comments were in reference to a previous plan, which was then amended to show the 10 parking spaces, and we have assessed that. We've considered that it's acceptable.
Cars and touring caravans. Separate touring caravans is over and above touring caravans.
So I've assessed it as we've got 10 parking spaces for cars, and there's sufficient space on each plot for an additional space for a touring caravan.
Okay.
So personal circumstances, other matters?
Sorry, just coming and apologise, Councillor Fern is working today and
Yeah.
is not able to attend, so sorry, I should have expressed his apologies earlier.
No, ideally, it is good to have the person who's brought it to committee, but we do understand that people have to work. Anything on personal circumstances? Nitrates? Yes, Councillor Pearce. Briefly.
Well, yes, there is an issue on the supplementary thing about the reference to septic tank, and I think it means suggestion that should be, instead of using a septic tank in future, there should be a link to the main sewer that goes to the site. Is that what you're saying? Because quite clearly, if it stays in the septic tank, then there may well be an issue of nitrate pollution. If that septic tank is adequate for present use, will it be adequate for future use? We're talking about 2 extra pitches, mobile homes, plus I presume touring caravans. And there's potential on this site for 10. Is there something there for 10, or is that part of the act?
So the application is for 3 additional.
Yeah.
So it will be 5 pitches in total.
Right, okay. And with it, if this application is approved, there'll be actually only 4 of the pitches occupied.
No, all 5 pitches would be occupied, yes.
Right, okay. Now, will the septic tank be adequate to cover that increase in population on that site? Or would we require a link to the main sewer, as you imply?
As I understand it, there isn't a main sewer line nearby.
Yeah.
The drainage engineer has looked at it and suggested that details of a personal treatment plant,
Yeah.
or a package treatment plant rather, should be explored and submitted via a condition, and I've included that additional condition as part of the update sheet.
That's what I was getting at, because if not, there'd be an overflow of voices, etc., which is increasing nitrate pollution on the site. Accidental, but nonetheless an increase. So is that conditioned?
So yeah, I've suggested that as an additional condition under the update sheet, so that will form condition 15. And I'd just like to draw your attention to condition 13, which specifically relates to nitrates, so that would need to be mitigated as prior to occupation.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would need to be secured prior to occupation of the 3 additional dwellings.
And the enlargement of the access to the site will be big enough for any vehicle that may have to empty that septic tank, or, well, obviously if they link to the main sewer, that won't be necessary.
Yes, the highways engineer has confirmed that they're satisfied, provided that condition, bear with me.
Yeah, there is a condition.
There is a condition
Yeah.
that secures that the access is acceptable.
Yeah, because this is a very narrow lane, isn't it? Okay, thank you, Jim.
Just on that note, I was just looking at condition 15. It just says detailed proposals for foul and surface water. It doesn't say what it says above, does it? That it's just asking for proposals. That's indicated in that condition, is it? That
So what the condition is asking for is confirmation that all routes have been explored, really. So if a package treatment plant has been explored, then details of that would be required. If they've looked into that and found that that's not acceptable, then we will look at the details regarding the assessment that they've got in place and whether or not that would be sufficient for the additional dwellings as well. It's something that we would look at once they've got the details before them and can submit for agreement.
okay? Councillor Bronk.
Thank you. Because of the confusion at the start about which ones are static and then having associated caravans with them, I just had a reservation that the conditions are sufficiently clear when they say under 13 for 3 additional caravans, because we're not talking about, we've specified that there would be 10 caravans there and there would be 6 additional caravans rather than 3. I know you need the 3 additional static ones and their associated
Touring caravans.
But I'm not sure if it says 3 shan't be occupied until you're not confirming that means that the other 3 that we would be permitting cannot be occupied as well.
So we can change the wording of condition 13 to make it specific for the 3 additional pitches, because the 2 are existing and not viable for the nitrates, I believe.
I think it's a bit, I appreciate the question. I think it's quite, I can say it's irrelevant, but what it will do is they'll have to create a nitrate budget that will show how much nitrate the scheme would generate as a result of the occupation of the 3 new pitches that are being created, and then they'll need to compensate for that to ensure they can demonstrate nitrate neutrality. So I think we can be more specific in that so it's clear, but actually we wouldn't approve anything until it demonstrates it's nitrate neutral. So
I was watching just to try and assist in that.
thank you.
Councillor Benton.
I think there were some conditions about most of these things imposed on the original application. Have those all been approved and carried out?
So the ones that required agreement have been agreed on the original one. The ones that haven't been, I have copied over to this one. But I understand that they were not prior to occupation or prior to commencement ones. I have asked for some additional planting and included ensured that the planting that has been done as required will be carried over to this application as well. So all the ones that were on the original 2018 application that was approved in 2019 have been carried over to this one, including a couple of additional ones.
Councillor Amy?
Yeah, on conditions, looking at the objections we've received in, one of the main ones appears to be smoke and odour from the site. Can we put a condition in on burning bonfires and that sort of thing?
Well, I think the officers will tell us that that is covered by a different legislation, environmental health. We don't normally condition that.
That's correct, yes.
Because environmental health can take that further.
Yeah.
So have we finished the questions? And so can we move into debate? Councillor Rutter.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to congratulate Mr. and Mrs. Sherwood for coming forward in the correct manner and asking for planning permission and for doing things in the right way. Well done. Very much appreciated. I'm sorry that we've given you the third degree here, but as you can appreciate, traveller sites can be very problematic at times for local communities. But I'm delighted to hear that you've settled in well into your local community. And I'm very pleased to see that we are able to enable you to live in a multi-generational communal way that fits in with your traditions. And as I say, I'm very pleased that you've come the right way. We've gone through it in very great detail. I hope we've reassured any listeners who live locally that everything is being done in the right way. And I hope you'll be very happy in your new multi-generational home, assuming we approve it. I'm happy to support the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Laming.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I also congratulate the family for bringing this forward in the right, correct manner, which is very important, particularly when you're dealing with the rest of the community. I also accept the fact that Romany families are very strong group of people and they rely on their families tremendously. So I have no hesitation in going along with this particular recommendation.
Any further contributions? Well, I'm afraid I can't support this, and it is nothing against anybody personal. It's not a personal attack on gypsies and travellers, because we do understand that they like a different way of life. But I do feel that given that we gave permission 2 years ago, and that's not 2 years ago really, and then now we're coming in with an application for, we gave permission for 2 and now we're coming in for an application for 5. I just think that is too much for the site. I don't agree it is a sustainable location as required by our policies, and I don't agree with the land measurements which, I'm sorry, were given as to the nearest settlement. Sure, Heath has absolutely no facilities whatsoever. It has no shop, it has a very spasmodic rural bus service, and there are a number of these sites in the area, and I understand that because of COVID they might be closed, but they won't always be closed. And I think, you know, to have applied, if the application had been for 5 plus 5 touring vehicles to start with, that's a different thing. But to come in 2 years later and then ask for, you know, considerably more than what was originally given, and we've heard that there is a 5-year land supply, I just do think that this is an inappropriate site for any more gypsy and traveller sites. So I'm sorry, but I won't be supporting the application. So this recommendation has been recommended for approval. we have an extra condition on the update sheet, number 15. And did I hear that number 13 is going to be slightly reworded? Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes, Chair, we're just adding the other clarification. We're linked to the 3 additional pictures that we're granting.
So sorry. So given those 2 additions and changes, could you please indicate whether you support the approval of this application?
6 in favour, Chair.
And those against?
3 against.
And are there any abstentions? That adds up. So what were the numbers? Sorry.
6 in favour, 3 against.
Yeah. So that application is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Brave or not, members? No.
Moving on. Okay, this is a Google map of the site in relationship to the surrounding land. As you can see, most of the site to the north and the east, as well as the south, is belongs to the East Horton Golf Course. This is another view of the site. The site is outside the settlement boundary. The shaded area of the dwelling is the grade 2 listed dwelling, and the building has been extended along the side with the adjacent converted barn buildings. The listed building was listed in 1987, early 19th century, and one of the features listed was the veranda along the front of the dwelling. The land outside the red edge in the shaded portion is part of a site of importance of nature conservation, otherwise known as a SINC. And this slide will summarize the proposal. It is for a new external access from the converted barn building. To the front of the dwelling is the proposed carport, garage, and log store. And to the rear corner of the site is the proposed storage building for garden equipment. And this slide demonstrates the rear elevation of the converted barn. There will be two new windows proposed to the first floor, a set of stairs for rear garden access that will include a small landing, and due to the low level of the eaves, a small canopy over the door. The doors proposed are bifolds. And as the joinery will have to be customized, there is a joinery details included as a condition due to its relationship to the listed building and its curtilage. This is a slide showing the design of the garage carport that is to be installed to the front of the building, number 2 in the map. The carport is 2-bay and it has a sliding door. The lock store is along the side, and the overall ridge height will be 3.9 meters. Materials proposed are wood with slate roof. And this slide shows the drawings of the rear garden store that's to be installed, proposed to the corner of the rear garden. Although the picture shows a vehicle, and it's just the brochure picture, this won't be used for passenger cars, it will be used for mowers, other garden equipment. The door openings will be northeast into the garden site. And the overall ridge height is 3.5 meters. Photo 1 here is the view from the front access of the dwelling. As you can see, there's a shared lane off of Greenwood Lane that three dwellings utilize: the Greenwood Farm, Greenwood Lodge, as well as Greenwood Manor. The listed dwelling is shown on the left, and you can see the extension next to it, and then part of the converted barn adjacent. The carport and garage is to be located near where the white car is shown to the left, and I'll have a better picture of this in the next slide. This is the listed building and its front drive. Where the car is located is the proposed site for the carport, garage, and lock store. It will be set back from the front elevation of the listed building, and the side garden already has gate access for through access to the rear garden. Photo 4 shows where some of the hedge has been cut back at the boundary, while retaining some of the remaining hedge when viewed from the neighbor's side, and there'll be another photo showing the other side of that hedge. Now we're moving to the rear of the site toward the location of the garden store building. As you can see, there's a gravel lane, and that is within the private property of the golf course. Photo 5 is a combination of photos, very poorly, I admit, trying to show the demonstration of where the building is to be installed and its relationship to a hedge that will screen this part of the garden from the dwelling. The nearest tree is shown in the left part of that photo, and it has approximately 10 meters distance from the proposed building to that tree. Photo 6 shows the area for the building at a different angle, and the stick in the foreground is the front part of the building where the opening access will be northeast that will lead out into the remainder of the rear garden. And these are the photos of the remaining part of the rear garden that shows the rear elevation of the converted barn buildings. The photo with the drawing compared, you can see where this is where the 2 additional windows will be installed, as well as rear access into the garden with the stairwell and small landing. Photo 8 is just another view of the front side of the converted building, just to give an idea of how the building is currently used. The ground floor are individual storage compartments, and the upper floor is just open planned residential use only. Photo 9 obviously shows the inside of the first floor, and that's the wall where the windows and the door is to be installed. And these are photos demonstrating some wider views from both private and public land. Photo 10 is the closest point beyond a hedgerow that you can see the barns from the right-of-way path southeast of the property, as demonstrated within the red line of the map. The rest of the land in between is private, belonging to the East Horton Golf Course. And photo 11 and 12 are just demonstrating that behind the house is I think it's 15th hole. And that's the view back from the green of 15th hole back to the dwelling and the barn buildings. These are more views of the area. Again, 13 is from the golf course. And it's the closest point to where you would potentially be able to see the staircase and landing and the 2 windows against the rear elevation of those converted buildings. Photo 14 is just a wider shot from the green, showing the proposal rear storage building adjacent and an ancillary building within the neighboring garden. An additional site visit was held to assess the impact from the nearest dwelling, which is Greenwood Farm. The main house has an ancillary building located in its corner of the property, as shown in photo 15. Photo 15 is taken from the drive as you enter and head toward the ancillary building. Photo 16 is just another view in front of the ancillary building back toward the proposal site. Photo 17 shows the boundary fence between the ancillary building and what will be the garden storage building. And photo 18 shows the other side of that fence within the proposal site. And to assess the potential overlooking aspects, this is the view standing in front of the ancillary building, looking back toward the dwelling. And the proposed staircase will be just above that hedgerow. It's not a very good picture, I apologize, but the eaves line is in line with the fence in the distance. Photo 20 is also another view, and you can see the barn building in the distance. And photo 21 shows the other side of the hedge that has been cut back for the carport and garage building to the front. Some of the ridge will be shown over the hedge, as the ridge height will be 3.9 meters, and I estimated the hedge to be approximately 3 to 3.5 meters. And to summarize, the proposal is for 2 incidental buildings within the garden and installation of a staircase and roof canopy with 2 windows to the converted barn of a residential property. The proposal does not have a significant or detrimental impact on the character and appearance of the area or the residential amenities of the occupants of adjacent properties, and is therefore in accordance with policies of the development plan. The recommendation is for approval.
Thank you very much, Marge. Now, as that was a very full report and a brilliant set of photographs, all numbered, and congratulations on the report. I'm going to take all the headings together. It doesn't matter if you want to ask more than one question. So that starts on page 202 and goes on to the top of page 205. Any questions from anyone? Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm going to talk about residential development. I noticed in 1992 was an application granted for the 5 number units of holiday accommodation. One presumes to do that we would have to put this external staircase in. So are we talking about them now beginning doing what is now lapsed?
No, the plan is not to convert those buildings as the previous planning application.
Which was the 92 one?
I believe the previous owners had started the conversion, but didn't finish it as according to the 92 plans.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So we're talking about effectively access to space in order to create. Will they have to come back to planning in order to actually complete that? That is to create the 5 units.
I'm not sure. That's not part of it.
This staircase goes to an empty space.
Yeah.
And why the parish council are concerned is they think it might be used for wedding receptions or functions, but they, as it says in the report, they'd have to come back with a planning application if they want to use it for that.
Yeah.
So it's just, we're taking it on face value. It's a staircase up to a room, and I think Marge has got a picture of the room there as well, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm not too sure where you're going with the 5 dwellings, because that's
Well, I
past.
wasn't actually, where I was going is actually what you both have said, that the speculations how this space, which is presently empty, is going to be used. Is it going to be created 5 units, which is an application that's now elapsed, or is it something else? Well, clearly,
Well, I don't think that's a planning, I don't think that's a planning concern, is it?
It's just an extension of the house.
I think it's used as ancillary accommodation at the moment, and that is a householder proposal. If they want to do something different to that in the future, subdivide it or use it as a, change its use to something they'll have to come back to us, and I appreciate there might be some speculation.
That's what I, that's
But
what
we
I
don't
was
have that in front of us at the moment. What we can do is approve, assess, and if you are minded to approve it today, the 3 individual components, which are the windows, the garage, the structure, and the external staircases. And I think those are all, so that's also, as a household proposal, that's all we're being asked to
the development
approve or
of the
review. But it's a stage, isn't it, that we've got in front of us.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
And we'd have to have material planning reasons to refuse the staircase.
Yeah.
And we haven't got it.
Well, it's not a staircase, it's going to an empty space.
Okay.
You might have what?
So any more questions on the whole of the report? No. So debate. No debate. I should be supporting the recommendation to approve. It doesn't harm the listed building, and people can do what they want with their own property, and all the additions of log stores and so on seem sensible. So on that note, this application has been recommended. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Judge. I think I'd just like to make one point. It's very disappointing that the objectors have chosen not to come to committee to raise their objections. And we have to sit here going through something where we've recommended to approve it.
People are scared, perhaps, of coming out, and all sorts of reasons, or they're at work, or, you know. Noted. We were at the point where I was saying this application has been recommended for approval. Could you please show if you agree with that recommendation?
That's all members in support, okay.
So that application is approved. Thank you. Okay. So agenda item 15. This is, as I said, the confirmation of TPO 2294 at Hockley Golf Club, Winchester Road, Twyford. The officer presenting is Ivan Girdler. I'll just give him a minute to sort out his presentation.
Good afternoon, councillors. Good afternoon, Chairman. Thank you very much. This is for confirmation of TPO 2294 at the golf course, Winchester. The history to this was the tree officer was notified by email that the golf course were proposing to develop a group of significant beech trees that were surrounding a water reservoir at the golf course. The tree officer visited the site on the 8th of February, and TPO 2294 was served on the 15th of February and was expired on the 14th of August if not confirmed. At the time that the TPO 2294 was served, 1 letter of objection and 2 letters of support were received. The location map here shows this arrow up on screen. Yeah, there is. Oh, that's it, yeah, right, thank you. As you can see on the map, this is the main Twyford road that goes through to Twyford and through to Golden Column. The golf course, as you come under the motorway there, is on the left-hand side. There's the golf course clubhouse. The red lines are actually public rights of way, so you can see that the public right of way passes through the site, and the area looking actually is G1, which is where the 29 beach are and the U is, and W1, and some, as you can see, there's 3 TPOs, individual TPOs on that site. Also, to note is you can see these streets on the opposite side of the valley. So here we have the Badgers Farm roundabout, the bottom of Badgers Farm Road, that goes to Compton that way. You come down the flyover here, and this is the start park and ride south here. And again, all the red lines are actually public rights of way. So this is Itching Farm. So as you come onto the public right of way, then you can see right across the valley, and you can actually see G1 and W1 across the valley. And I have some photographs of that in a moment to show you. Some of the objection is that the golf course raised an objection to the TPO and said it intends to remove the trees because of leaf litter from the trees circling up the filters to the irrigation system that irrigates the greens. The golf course manager planned to remove the trees around the water reservoir and to re-landscape the area around the reservoir with plants of habitat, wildlife habitat. though he didn't mention what it was. They also discussed the work with the countryside ranger from the South Downs, who did not raise any objection to felling of the trees. As I say, the golf course manager wanted to fell the trees to have clean water for the golf course irrigation. Also, the golf course had obtained a felling licence from the Forestry Commission to thin the groups of trees at the golf course, not to clear fell. We had 2 letters of support, one from Twelfton Parish Council and a local board member strongly objecting to the felling of the trees within G1 and fully supports the confirmation of the TPO. Both the Parish Council and board member recognise the importance of these trees in the landscape and the high visual public amenity. I've put a summary of the comments in the paperwork if you wish to have a look in the committee report of that. Now, these are the photographs of the trees. This is the one taken in the car park that the rights of way go through. Now, the G1, as you can see here, and W1, I've TPO'd both sides of these trees for completeness to ensure that they are protected. As you can see, there is the golf course manager as his golf buggy. This is the right of way coming up here. So you can see the height of them. Like I say, this is the 29 beach, and you there, and the reservoirs there. Again, these were taken back in the winter, so the tree's not looking at their best. I do have some summer photographs in a minute, but again, this is taken from down in the car park, the lower ground. So you can see G1 here, and this is W1 over here. This is the water reservoir itself. As you can see over the top, these are the trees that go around the outside here. Public right of way comes up the side of here. This is going past the water reservoir, looking back towards the M3. So the M3 is over here, looking down the hill towards 12th Road, Golf Club House down the bottom here. This is W1. This is the 29 beach and the yew tree that they wish to fell. So looking down the hill. This is walking through the woodland W1. So the water reservoir is up over here, and this is the public right of way that comes up to the front of the trees and actually comes through the W1. Again, this is from outside. This is W1. This is the woodland. The water reservoir is over here. And on TPO, there are three individual TPOs. This is T3, yew tree. And then the next one, T1 and T2 were felled in between the time we surveying the site and serving the TPO. So this is T1 and T2. The TPO will still be applicable to both of these stumps because they will regenerate, but this tree is about 140 years old. It's been felled, and the excuse given was because it casts shade on the greens below. Now this is the long distance view I talked about from Mission Farm at the bottom of Batches Farm Road. So when you come off, the radius behind you, the railway's over here, and you're walking down the footpath so you can see across. This is G1 and this is W1. So if G1 was to disappear, that would make a massive hole in the landscape there. Again, these are pictures I took last week. I wanted the trees to come into leaf. This is the public right as you go up. The public right goes through the woodland at this side, but also walkers use the track that goes up through the middle. So water reservoir in there, so that's all the G1 there. This is actually the other side again. The water reservoir's here. We're looking down. You can just see the clubhouse there. So it's looking down the hill. And again, from the same picture as before from the car park, to say this is in the with the trees in leaf, and again, that's the public right of way through there, and so into the fell that, but this is W1 there. It's again walking past, back on top of the hill, looking down, you can see the cars on the M3 there, and you actually can see them from the M3 as you're driving up the M3 there. This tree here, it is coming into leaf, it's just a bit slower than the rest of them, it's not dead, it is budded. So that's the water reservoir just there. So the observation is that there's been no arboricultural technical reasons given provided for the felling of G1. No alternative solution from the golf club was given, but to fell the trees to stop the leaves falling in the water. There's no tree management plan for the site or submitted to protect chain trees. Due to location of trees, they fully meet the criteria of protection of TPO because they do have a high visual amenity, value and importance of landscape. They do have local views, and they do have, they do have long distance views. The proposed felling of G1 will have a detrimental impact on the landscape and is contrary to the policies of the South Downs National Park local plan. And in your papers there, Councillor, I've actually written what the South Downs National Park national plan is, but the main thing is to conserve and enhance the natural beauty, wildlife and cultural heritage of the area. So, you know, the advice given by the ranger who doesn't work for the South Downs anymore, it went against the actual plan, their own actual plan. The proposed removal of G1 will not alone stop the windblown trees falling into the water reservoir, because obviously you've got W1 next to the G1, so, you know, removing a few trees that are around, but let's say a few, you know, number of trees around the reservoir will not stop the problems and will not resolve the leaves falling in the water. The TPO legislation takes priority over the felling licence, and they actually do say if the trees are TPO and become TPO, the felling licence then becomes ineffective. Now, the government guidelines are that the protection of trees within the tree preservation order is in accordance with government guidance that states that orders should be used to protect selected trees if their removal would have a significant negative impact on the local environment and it's enjoyed by the public, which we've seen that, you know, from long distance views and of course the public rights of way that go through the woodland and around the woodland, they do have high amenity value. So the recommendation is that TPO 2294 to be confirmed, because there is immediate risk to the trees that they will be felled, and they have already felled significant trees on the site. The trees are worth protection because of the high visual amenity, but also it's the right tree in the right place. Beech trees are, you know, South Downs trees, they are chalk downing trees, so they are the right tree in the right landscape in the right place. And both prompts to serve the TPO have been activated, which they are under threat, and they do have the sufficient amenity value to be protected. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Right, well, the parish council representative, Councillor Chris Corcoran, can't be here today, but I believe Councillor Cook, you are going to read a statement on his behalf, and then you've got your own slot of 5 minutes. And I'm sorry, you've got to bring your own chair as well.
Chair will travel.
Super.
Yeah.
So you're going to start with the parish council representation, and you've got 3 minutes to read the statement.
If I may, Chair, I'd like to read this out as if I am Chris Corcoran,
yes,
if that's all right. My name is Chris Corcoran. I am a Twyford Parish Councillor. I am speaking on behalf of the Parish Council. My apologies for being prevented from doing so in person, and I'm having to arrange another person. First and foremost, your officer's report is a sound and fair statement of the facts as Twyford Parish Council see them. These are precise, the reasons why Parish Council has asked the city to impose a TPO and to do so as a matter of urgency. We are most grateful to Ivan Gerber for responding so quickly and decisively. It was clear that urgent attention was fully justified as the golf club has a Forestry Commission felling licence for a large area which includes these 29 beech and preparing to fell. The club appear to have been using their licence to fell extensively to Twyford's view. It has exceeded its terms. It is not for clearance, which appears to have taken place, but for selective felling only. There is no felling plan nor a replanting one guide for the club. The loss of tree cover on the golf course will be compounded by ash dieback and by the loss of this beech, or beeches. The parish chairman and I, which is Chris Corcoran, met the club chairman and the key staff at his invitation, and we had a constructive discussion. The club had a management plan until recently. That was agreed. This was agreed between Winchester, South Downs, Natural England and other agency, but it has in fact lapsed. Please ask your officers to assist us in this update and implementation of the club's management plan to include its trees and woodland. In the meantime, this TPO is a vital step in showing your concern for this prominent site on the boundary of the city and the national park, the beauty of which is shared by us all.
Thank you very much. We won't ask for any clarification. So we go straight into your role as ward councillor, and you have 5 minutes.
Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, fellow councillors and officers, and I thank you for allowing me to speak at the purpose of this confirmation of the Tree Preservation Order 2294 of the 29 mature beech trees and the mature yew. Hockley Golf Course is placed on a historical site of great importance, in particular its environmental setting. The trees in question surround a reservoir that provides water for the certain areas of the golf course. This reservoir unfortunately has not been maintained until slightly recently, although it could be redeemed back to its former glory. The reason provided by the club for removing these trees, well-established beech, is that the reservoir may be maintained more easily. It exemplifies the lack of consideration given to the care of the historic landscape and the environment, which is essential. The club utilises the purpose of this special location to play golf. In recent times, the golf course administrators have cleared a number of trees and shrubbery, and some members have even been quoted to saying there's not as many birds around here anymore. A mature yew tree was removed for apparently a reason that it was casting a small shadow across the first hole on the course. This is the same cavalier gung-ho approach that is being applied to this particular application, the 29 mature beech trees and the yew. Naming it should surround the reservoir, and therefore to maintain the reservoir, the trees have to go. These copse of trees are fully mature and healthy and extremely fine specimens. They form an integral part of the natural landscape, and they enhance the beautiful surrounding that we all know as the South Downs National Park. Their removal would adversely affect landscape, and the reservoir would be exposed, and surely this would be like a scar on the hillside. The way forward is to maintain, obviously, the trees and maintain the reservoir, maybe a netting and day-to-day maintenance, not just the cutting of greens. A well-considered management plan is required, covering the course so that it does not have actions such as what is wanted on this particular application. There is no justification for the destruction of these trees and the vandalism to the countryside, other than the commercial gain and sterilisation of the area for the pursuit of golf. The time of year rather surprised some members about wanting to cut down trees in April, when surely there would be birds nesting, bats commuting on their routes, and habitats for feeding barn owls. In fact, one day after the Winchester Tree Officer, Mr. Ivan Girdler, attended the site that was called upon by Twyford Parish Council and myself, a tree was actually cut down. A supreme arrogance and disrespect. You've seen the reports from point 11.7 in the tree officer's report is clear, and I quote, "There are no agricultural reasons or justifications provided for the felling of G1, that's the 29 beech trees." In point 15.1, these trees have an excess of 250 years remaining in their healthy life. They are characteristic species of the southern shortland and contribute an independent feature. These trees within this area can be seen from the public right-of-way, as we've heard, that runs through the golf course and also seems to be a prominent feature on the landscape. They have a high visual impact, visual public amenity value. We've referenced the South Downs National Park, and I probably don't need to remind you all, is to conserve and enhance the natural beauty, wildlife and cultural heritage of the area. Removal would be completely the opposite. We are, as council, are helping to tackle climate change, and every effort is to create a more greener district. This is why these trees need to be managed correctly. Removal of these trees would be to the contrary of those policies. So the committee, I sit here before you today, and you are in full agreement with the tree officer's request, as we are at Twyford Parish, and I am too, to confirm the Tree Preservation Order 2294. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cook. There might be questions with clarification for you. It looks not. So thank you very much for coming along this afternoon. Sorry
Thank you,
you had
Chair.
such a long wait, and thank you for reading the Parish Council's statement. And pick up your chair and walk. Any questions for Ivan? Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Chair. Ivan, cutting down the yew tree, is that actually breaking the law? I understood there was some sort of protection on yew trees that's slightly different from others.
No, there's no breaking of the law there. The tree wasn't protected at the time, but there's no special for the.
You did say it might regenerate?
The roots will regenerate again. We'll come up with it. Take many years, obviously, to grow, but the stump, you can protect the stump with the TPO and it'll shoot again. You can, but it'll take many years to.
Something really like that. Is there any punishment that can be lashed on these tree destroyers?
Not at the moment, no, they haven't, but
So the TPO wasn't closed?
No,
Okay.
no, they fell in between the survey and the TPO, so.
Councillor Leaming.
Thank you.
Very
That's it. Good. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Okay.
Thank you for an excellent report. You acted very quickly and commend you for that. Are you sure though that you've covered all your trees in the course? Enough.
Today.
Because there aren't that many trees there apart from that little bomb here.
Yeah. There's a big problem with ash dieback
Yeah.
on the site, and that's one of the reasons we want to preserve these big trees, because the way they're going, there won't be anything left. So I can't stop them filling the beach and filling the ash trees.
Yeah, sure.
And it really is that the ash have to go for the benefit of everybody, because you're trying to control the disease. But at the moment, it's sort of, how can I say, these trees are the most prominent trees at the moment. And they serve the first properly.
When they fell the dieback trees,
Yes.
do they have to remove them from the site or can they leave them to rot?
No, they are permitted to leave them on site because the government's recognised that the spores are spread by the wind and the rain, and it's already there. So and the rain's going, and the wood is not transferred on them, it's transferred on the leaves and the twigs.
So therefore, there's no excuse to cut down any trees to help remove them.
No.
Thank you.
Could I just ask you, Ivan, and you might not want to comment, but I personally found the South Downs National Parks offers the Rangers comment unhelpful.
It was very unhelpful, and I actually rang the South Downs people to ask for clarification as how did they sit, and they were quite embarrassed by what had happened. And then they've come back now to sort of say that they're on neutral ground with it. And they were not going to start with felling or keeping the trees. So
Yeah, well, considering the landscape-led local plan, but they have in that sort of last statement in italics on page 232, they've sort of left the doorway open.
Yes.
For challenge.
yes, yeah. So yeah, just to say that they wanted to remain neutral. So I think that what that does, that gives us the chance to implement them further or to give further advice. To sort of basically they're not going to resist any more TPOs.
Yeah. Okay. Any further question? Debate?
Yes. So, I didn't quite get in on the questions, if I could just ask.
Yes, of course.
Ivan, is there any way that we can persuade organisations that have to cut ash trees down because of the dieback to replace them with something that's, another tree, another different species?
Another beech.
Well, if it's over 5 cubic metres, they're supposed to get a felling licence from the Forestry Commission, which will then stipulate that they have to replant. Now, what we've got to watch on that is that the Forestry Commission on this side issued what they call an unconditional licence, which means they didn't have to plant anything. So where the trees are TPO'd, the Forestry Commission will write to local authority and say these trees are TPO, do you raise an objection? That is our chance to say, no, we don't raise an objection because it's our style, but we would like to see blah, blah, blah. Now, what I've been doing is planting elm back in the place of the ash, because now they're Dutch resistant elms. So, you know, obviously you know what happened before the elms. So this is a chance to put something back. There's two sort of disasters, right? By, you know, at the cost of one disaster, we can try and mitigate the new round of elm trees that be many, many years ago, they're really slow growing, but they are tough wood and they're good long trees and they are good for, you know, ecology and biodiversity.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any further questions? Debate? Yes, Councillor Pearson.
Yes, thank you, Aaron, for the reports. I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think to remove a healthy tree, which is, as far as climate change is concerned, maximum effectiveness, is not just environmental vandalism. I mean, the picture of the guys standing by that forest, the forest ranger standing by that felled tree, reminds me of a big game hunter boasting about killing an animal in East Africa. To me, it's exactly the same principle. There's nothing wrong with this tree. There's no suggestion they could cover that reservoir if they're concerned about leaves falling into it. And as Adam quite rightly says, removing one tree from the woodland won't make any difference in the number of leaves falling into that reservoir. There's just no argument in favour of felling it in that line. And quite frankly, I'm absolutely staggered by the South Down National Park attitude to this. I mean, I can't even begin to think of any reason why they're supporters.
I'd just say it was one of their rangers, it wasn't the South Downs itself that actually agreed it, sort of such, it was their ranger that agreed it with the golf club.
But the rangers are their representatives.
Yes, they are, but
I mean, one of my early aspirations career was to become a forest ranger. I mean, even from that point of view, I'm staggered by the suggestion. So I can't see any argument for removing TPO from this tree. In fact, I go as far as to say, make sure all of the trees in that woodland are TPO. Because it's, I mean, you've said it, all the reasons for it. I mean, I support your 100%.
And I hope I speak on behalf of the committee that, you know, putting wildlife friendly plants in place of 29 beech and 1 yew is just not the same thing at all. And they need to find a different way of stopping their leaves go into the reservoir if it's that important. And I hope that there's a strong message, if we all agree, will go to the golf course that these trees are valuable, you know, for the golf course, but also for the long distance views. Yes, I do represent the City Council and the South Downs National Park, so I expect to have further conversations about it. But the rangers are not actually the official officers. So I personally will be supporting the recommendation very strongly to keep these 29 beech trees and 1 yew tree. Are we at the point of getting to the vote?
Agree.
All those in favour?
All members, Chair.
All members. Councillor Blanc absented himself. There is just one.